church and school. And I just want to express our gratitude of being able to address you all this afternoon about our concerns regarding the proposed Miramar project. And we're grateful for this forum. I'm joined today by Sherry Benninghoven, Chip Nichols, Katie Graham, George Masurlian. Sherry and Chip have been involved in our most recent sanctuary restoration project, which you may be familiar with. They created a memorial chapel in our sanctuary. George Masurlian is our senior warden or chair of our vestry church board, and Katie and I are residents in the neighborhood. Since my arrival, I'm a new person to the community, grateful again to be part of this community. Since my arrival in January, this has been a concerning topic in our church community. It's talked about quite a bit. If you hit the next slide. Yeah. Great. So in our presentation today, we want to cover the following topics. We want to talk about good working relationships, impact on our parish community, All Saints as an historic resource, state law, environmental review, policy, the Montecito Community Plan, historic resource, roadway character, Santa Ynez range visual importance, and size, bulk, and scale facts. So first I want to underscore that we have a very good working relationship with the Rosewood Miramar team. I'm committed to maintaining our good working relationship. Our origin 125 years ago began with a donation of land from the previous owners of the Montecito, of the Rosewood Miramar. In 2014, when new plans were put in place to transform that site, All Saints leadership was committed to finding a common way forward that addressed our concerns. And today we continue to meet with the development team working on this project. And I believe that a good working relationship is grounded in trust and transparency, and we expect that going forward in our discussions. Next slide. For the past 125 years, All Saints have served the needs of the wider community. We are formed by our faith and have been a sanctuary for forums for the wider community, and also during times of crisis such as the recent debris flood where people fled there and we were sort of a station of relief. We're committed through our church and school to be a beacon of hope and to be a strong presence of care and compassion because love is at our center. Part of our formation as a church community included a strong connection to place and creation. Informed by the simple view of the mountains and comforted in our memorial chapel by the gift of God's creation, we enter our place of worship with grateful hearts for all that we have received. And this is largely formed by the beauty of what is around us. You do not have to look far to find examples of wonderful, brilliant philosophers who are shaped by the beauty around them, such as Henry David Thoreau. In our current cultural moment of disconnection, such as what we are experiencing, the connection to place, beauty, and God's creation in a place of faith is essential to our weekly restoration. It is a key aspect to Sabbath. The loss of this connection goes right to the gut. It is like losing an old grove of ancient redwood trees. And it is a tremendous loss of place and a meaningful connection that All Saints has enjoyed for 125 years. The proposed project itself will be built right up to the property line with no open space between us. I struggle to see any benefits on any level of the current proposal. How do you qualify the impact of such a proposal on a faith community? It would be a loss for All Saints, and in many ways, a loss for Montecito. It is about disconnection in a current cultural moment where disconnection is at the heart of loneliness and a fracturing of the fabric community of our human community. So I have formed a working group at All Saints to gather up information regarding this project, and I'd like to invite Katie Graham to come forward and share with you that information. Katie.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for having us here. Thank you, Amy, for hosting us in this enchanted environment. Maybe it will cast a spell of resolution on us all, I hope. And thank you for facilitating a conversation. So I'm part of a working group that's just gathering facts and information to facilitate our leadership's work in attempting to protect our resource, or reach an agreement of some resolution. So I hope it will be useful to the community and to you today if we just relay some of the information that we've gathered in the hope that it will help that conversation, and if it does come a time for you all to weigh in on policy, that perhaps it would be of some benefit to you too, to have some of this information. I want to thank also Bryce for helping me get my hands on some documents, and also in particular Willow Brown at the county's office, who's been extraordinarily responsive, helping us find our way through documents. So next slide, please. So the first point is that the All Saints is a historic resource. It does qualify. We have in 2016, Post Hazelton did a historic resource report prior to our renovation and an assessment of the historic impact of that project, and did find that, next slide please, that it qualifies both at the county, state, and also at the federal level as a historic resource for purposes of environmental review. Any of these documents that I referred to, you all are welcome. We can get copies for you. We didn't want to bog down too much in details. Next slide, please. So, environmental review, I recognize in bonus density law does limit discretion quite a bit. And I should clarify, I'm here as a member of the congregation and not as an attorney. I don't represent the church in that capacity. I'm here as a congregation member. There will be some environmental review, places for my environmental review and for policy consistency assessment. We looked at the existing environmental impact report. We were able to look at, for the current project, to see whether the impact on All Saints had ever been considered, and it has not, and that was due to the findings that the project would not be visible from Eucalyptus Lane. So that wasn't looked at. The historic impacts that were assessed previously with respect to Miramar was whether it was the impact on the old historic bungalows. So just, there was a 2008 environmental impact review, a 2011 environmental impact review with regard to a project that was actually changed before it was built, and then a addendum review for the current project in 2015. So those reviews considered the bungalows and found them to be irreversibly dilapidated, and it was unavoidable to destroy them, and that was the focus of that historic impact. The 2015 documents passing environmental review for the current project observed that the structures would be minimally visible from the nearest public road, Eucalyptus Lane. That's the little bit that peeks over the preschool from behind, and that with respect to the building's project mass along South Jameson Lane, the proposed revised project would represent an improvement over the 2011 approved project because the spa building had been eliminated. That was the building that had been proposed on the northwest lot, which is next door to All Saints. And so the environmental clearance notes that that doesn't need to be looked at in 2015. So that's an issue that'll be new with respect to environmental review here, having any construction on Northwest and anything that's visible on the Eucalyptus Lane in the middle of the church campus. Next slide, please. I'd also note it was interesting that an underground garage had been eliminated, and that was also noted in the findings that there wasn't a need to do an additional environmental review. So there's been some change in baseline conditions. You know these as well as I do. There's been change in legislation, water supply, air quality, greenhouse gas legislation. We had a debris flow. We've built roundabouts, and we've got 101 widening. So there's been some changes in baseline conditions. Next slide. You know very well the Montecito Community Plan, but one of the goals that we focused on is the unobstructed community and neighborhood view corridors. So when questions of policy do arise, that'll be something that we'll have in mind, and I assume you would too, as the gatekeepers of the Montecito Community Plan. Next slide, please. Within that plan, we focused on a few issues with respect to historic resources and two others. So with regard to historic resource, it is a goal of the Montecito Community Plan to preserve and protect properties and structures with historic importance. And it is also a goal that the significant cultural and historic resources shall be protected. This is a historic resource. Next slide, please. We found the poster child for historic resources in the Montecito Community Plan. Next slide. With respect to the Santa Ynez Range, the goal of protecting the visual importance of the Santa Ynez Mountain Range and ocean views is noted in the plan, as well as architectural guidelines shall protect identified view corridors. And I'll just note that in the environmental review for the existing project, there was some concern with respect to the view corridor from the beach to the mountains, but the restaurant was brought down to one floor to eliminate that concern, and that's noted in the EIR findings. Again, if you want those documents, we can get them for you. We've seen the 2015 and the findings related to 2008 and 11 are out being copied by another party, so we haven't directly reviewed those, but I think we've got the gist of it. Next slide. All right, next slide. Oh, I think this was with regard to the connection to the range that our church enjoys. Channing spoke previously, but I'll just point out, this is the columbarium, which really takes advantage of that connection. It was part of our renovation. And, well, it's a final resting place. It'll be my final resting place. Lady Ridley Tree's there. Judy Tilsher, I don't know if you all worked with Dick. But it's, next slide. Special place for us. The roadway character is also a matter of concern in the Montecito Community Plan. So Montecito roadways are important components of community character. We all know and have recognized that. And development along roads should not impinge upon the character of the roadway. Next slide. So, I'm sorry I don't have better pictures, but if you've walked up Eucalyptus Lane, you kind of walk through the middle of the church campus. So on one side you have the parish house and the sanctuary and the parish hall, and on the other side the office and the Friendship Center, which is part of our campus, where my grandmother had afternoon elder care, and we have the preschool. So that is kind of the character. They're older buildings. It may or may not qualify as a historic district. Most likely it would. There's money involved that we're a volunteer organization to pursue that. But I think we do have a resource there. Next slide, please. So this shows the Friendship Center. Next slide, please. So with regard to the prominence of All Saints, Post Hazeltine did the historic resource assessment, and they'll probably be involved going forward. And they point out to us that the prominence of the building itself on that street is a defining feature historically. And so we looked at the square footage, which we have from our plans for the renovation, and it's 6,800 square feet. Am I blocking anybody? The proposal on the northwest lot corner, next slide please. Oh, sorry, thank you. Almost. The next is 36,000 square feet. So in terms of spatial relations between buildings, it's significant. And it's built out, if you look at the plans, pretty much to the edges of the property on all sides towards the church. Next slide, please. This is just the data to back it up. You have it in your packets, so you know where those numbers come from. That comes from the Miramar's plans. For scale, the 36,000 square feet is significantly bigger than the existing manor house in the center of the Miramar property now, which is 21,000. Next slide, please. That's from their plans for an approval in 2023 for the 5 stores that are going now. Next slide, please. I'll skip through these. These are just some other issues we've identified: parking, floor area, and things in the Montecito plan. But in the interest of saving a minute for Channing, if we can move through those. If you could back up 1 second on parking, we just wanted to point out that there has been a need for the Miramar to rent from us our parking lot on multiple occasions in the last 3 years in order to accommodate overflow. So we question whether the parking is currently adequate. And then for closing remarks. Thank you all so much.
I want to thank you as well. So I just want to underscore the importance of place, of connection to our surroundings, as well as just the history of All Saints in that community and its prominence there. And we hope that this is something that you also take into consideration as you're deliberating this yourself. So thank you all for your time. We are looking forward to seeing story poles in place that the Miramar has talked about, updated project plans that addresses our concerns, and as previously, we look forward to our continued conversations with the Miramar team. Thank you.
And there'll be many questions from the board and the community afterwards for the next presentation.